Hey guys, Matt Wenning at winningstrength.com, and today we're going to talk about some really neat laws that I think are laws of strength. So tune in and let's go over some big things that you may not be thinking of that will help your training both in the short and the long term.
Lately I've been living like I can't take a loss. They ain't wanna help me, that's what made me a boss. You can't kill my confidence, I think I'm the man. We don't give a f, that's what they don't understand. I'm back again like flu season, I broke records while loose leafing. I'm coming down my roof, leaving, don't give a f, I don't care. Did the by my lonesome, no wonder now I'm on one. No shortcuts on that long run, all I really want is my share.
The first law that I think really needs to be hit home, especially if you're a developing teenager athlete or you're just getting into weight training, is before you build strength, you need to build mobility. This is a very, very difficult task for most people because when they get into weight training, they're not thinking mobility at first. They're thinking muscle size, bodybuilding type mentality. I know that was my mentality at 11 and 12 years old, is I just wanted to be big and strong. But what I started to find was I had massive mobility limitations based on my car accident. So with my legs being in full cast for almost a year and a shattered pelvis, I had a hellacious mobility issue, not only in deadlifting but squatting, that took me many years to get better. This was almost a blessing in disguise because it forced me to gain this mobility very slowly and methodically over a long period of time, and I couldn't load up too fast. So the point is when I first started lifting, I was not real strong and I was tighter than a banjo string. But to lift in the current time was the ADFPA, which slowly turned into the USAPL. Squats were 2.5, 3 inches below parallel. I had to gain a lot of mobility, not only in my hips, but my knees and other parts of my body in order to be able to sustain these lifts. But this is also why the Russians, from the ages of about 4 to 8 years old, put every athlete into tumbling and gymnastics, because the mobility that you gain as a child from the ages of 4 to about 10 stay with you for almost your entire life. After the age of 13 to 16, it becomes much more difficult not only to get flexible, but to sustain flexibility. So what I find is that if you have small children between the ages of 4 and 10, whether they want to be in sports or not, put them in tumbling and gymnastics to just give them a base for later. Okay, but the big take-home here is make sure you work on range of motion and mobility before you start working on strength. How long could this take? Well, anywhere from 12 to 24 months, I feel, is a great block of training when you first start thinking about mobility before strength. The next law is before you build strength is you need to build tendons. Now, in my personal opinion and the research that we have found, this can be anywhere from 1 to 2 years. Remember that ligaments and tendons love volume and they don't really like intensity. What does this mean? This means that your base of training needs to be at higher volumes. If I were to go back and know what I know now, from the ages of 13 to 16 or 20, I would have come up with or seen winning warm-ups much earlier and have been doing 200 and 300 reps of warm-ups before I ever got super strong. And not only would my work capacity be higher, but my ligaments and tendons would be better. Which leads us back to what I was talking about in rule or law 1, which is I had to go slow because everything hurt and I was immobile from being injured. So before strength, make sure you build your tendons. In my personal opinion, ligaments and tendons grow about twice as slow as muscle tissue due to being fed through the lymphatic system versus the vascular system. So in my personal opinion, you need to have deloads built into your training if you're already training, and if you're first starting, your volume needs to be much higher, your intensity needs to be lower in order for your ligaments and tendons to adapt to what you're doing before you really start tugging and pulling on them with extremely strong muscles and not prepared tendons and ligaments. The last big law that I think is mostly very important for a lot of people watching this video and people that are uneducated in training smart is that before you develop your limbs, i.e. your legs and your arms, you need to be working on your core. So for most people, your limiting factor on how strong you're going to be overall, whether it be in athleticism, powerlifting, or any other endeavor, is going to come from your midsection. This means your obliques, your TVA or transverse abdominis, and your spinal erectors need to be crucial in your training and trained at least every 72 hours for the first 5 to 10 years of your training. This can be very difficult because most of us think day to day or week to week, and if we're lucky, month to month. But in reality, these muscles are very small. They don't get fed very well, as far as they don't have massive blood flow. Spinal erectors take a long time to build because they're encased in bone and surrounded by ligaments and tendons and very few large vessels. So the point is that your core is going to take longer to develop than your legs and your arms. But the problem is that most of us want to train what we see in the mirror. So when we first walk into a gym, we're not thinking about our core unless it's just to get a flat stomach, like the average asshole at the gym is going to try to get cut for a wedding in 6 months versus be healthy the rest of their life. They might be trying to just lose weight. But in reality, the midsection and its stability and its strength is going to allow you to be able to squat more, deadlift more, and even in some cases do upper body things heavier down the road without increasing injury. The point of all of these laws is to force you to think long term and to stay away from injuring joints. You're better off training slightly above average and building it up over a long period of time than you are having these massive intense training bouts that allot you injuries or end up backing your training way down because you're having to recover. So if you can focus on these 3 main laws: before strength, build mobility; before strength, build tendons and ligaments; and build your core before your limbs, I think this is going to keep people away from at least 80% of their injuries, and also long term allow you to see much bigger progress, muscle size, and strength over the course of your career and lifetime. So I hope this helps. If you guys need more help, come look at the workouts on Train Heroic and Patreon. And if you want professional help with everything individualized and customized, come on to our online coaching, where we're second to none, and every coach that we have on there has at least a master's degree and has played pro sports or hit elite totals. Talk to you guys later.
Lately I've been living like I can't take a